All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome. Tonight's meeting is being conducted, I'm calling the meeting, our Monday, January 26th Planning Commission meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Tonight's meeting is being conducted both in person and online. Members of the public may attend in person, or the public may also watch this meeting online at burnsvillemn.gov/meetings, or view us on Comcast Channel 16 or 859. The public can also join us on Zoom by going to zoom.us/join. More information is available on our meeting's webpage and in the agenda. Our first agenda topic tonight is the adoption of the agenda. Have we had an opportunity, commissioners, to review, and can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion to accept the agenda.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion is carried. Our second topic is the approval of the minutes from our January 12th, 2026 meeting. Commissioners, have we had an opportunity to review, and can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Beautiful. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries. Our first public hearing of the night is the application of Rootkind Holdings LLC on behalf of Prairie Wind Herb Co. LLC for a conditional use permit to allow a cannabis retailer at 3200 Highway 13 West. Being presented by Ms. Chapman, our associate planner.
Thank you for that introduction, Chair. Today we'll be talking about conditional use permit to allow a cannabis retailer at 3200 Highway 13 West in Unit 1 by Rootkind Holdings LLC on behalf of Prairie Wind Herb Company LLC. The left-hand image is an aerial image of the subject site, and the right hand is a zoning map with the subject site, which is highlighted in that red shade color, and the properties to the north, east, and west and the subject site are zoned GIH Gateway Industrial Heavy and are similarly guided as MRQ Minnesota River Quadrant. Directly south of the subject property is Highway 13 West and Frontage Road North. For some general background information on the topic, Rootkind Holdings on behalf of Prairie Wind Herb Company LLC submitted a conditional use permit application. This is an application to allow a cannabis retailer within the GIH district. Cannabis retailers require a conditional use permit to be within the GIH district. Specifically, Prairie Wind Herb Company LLC is proposing a cannabis retailer business called Chillwater Cannabis Shop in Unit 1 of the site. According to our definitions in the city code, cannabis retailer is defined as any person, partnership, firm, corporation, or association, foreign or domestic, selling cannabis product to a consumer and not for the purpose of resale in any form, according to Minnesota Statutes Chapter 342. Since cannabis is highly regulated by the state, this application is to review the use and to evaluate the location. Rootkind Holdings LLC has a purchase agreement for the property and has general plans to create this into a multi-tenant cannabis facility, in which this will include a cannabis retailer and then all their cannabis businesses, such as cannabis micro businesses. We did talk to our attorney about whether we could do a blanket CUP to allow other cannabis users instead of doing it separately, but after his instruction, it's recommended to do them separately because OCM reviews each application individually, so it would be easier to do them individually than have it as a blanket CUP. Much of the history is much like I explained in our previous conditional use cannabis permit that we reviewed at the last public hearing meeting. This is going to be much of a recap of the background and history of cannabis, but the actual meat of the presentation will be at the next slide, where we'll actually talk about the conditional use permit. So in 2023, Minnesota legislation passed State Statute 342 and amended it in 2024 to allow adult cannabis and created the Office of Cannabis Management, also known as OCM, which governs, licenses, cannabis enforcement in the state of Minnesota. Cities were then given an opportunity to create ordinances to regulate compliance, caps, zoning, and dictate time, place, and manner. It was from City Council's opinion in 2024 in which it gave city staff direction not to initiate any caps or buffers. So there'd be no buffers from schools, daycares, or parks. This was seen that it was very similar to liquor stores or other retail businesses within the city. Therefore, we created ordinance number adopted ordinance number 1619, which is now known as City Code 10-7-53, in which it is a city code section that discusses the definitions for various cannabis-type businesses and discusses uses in which, discusses permitted, conditional, and prohibited uses for different cannabis businesses within different districts. This specific request is a cannabis retailer, which is a conditional use permit within the GIH district. Prairie Wind Herb Company LLC received notification in May and June of 2025. For preliminary approval, they have 18 months to secure their location and complete all state requirements. This specific property has several CUPs, much of which are related to open sales, storage of new and used motor vehicles, sale of building materials and furniture sales with showroom. I should mention that CUPs become void after the discontinued use of more than 6 months. Specifically for this application, the applicant is requesting to occupy the eastern tenant space, which is about 4,530 square feet of space. They would have a secure reception area, restricted access to product storage, inventory control system, and staff training. They intend to have about 5 to 6 employees on site and be open from Monday to Sunday. And they did submit odor suppression plans, which you can see in your staff report. They are going to be using Clean Leaf air filtration system, which was specifically designed for cannabis cultivation in mind to eliminate odors. That is a high-capacity activated carbon filtration unit to eliminate odors. In the project narrative, they also discussed that they will be having demising walls. This is to have separate tenant spaces, and this is a requirement by OCM that all cannabis businesses must be legally separate and distinct, so they must have their own addresses and leases. According to OCM, there is allowed to be multiple cannabis tenants within a single building, as long as the perimeter of the premise is secured with video surveillance, key card access, and electronic locks. This is a slide that shows on the left-hand side is the location of where the tenant will be residing in. It's shown in this shaded green section, and here is where they would be residing in. And then the right-hand image is a site survey of the property that shows the general outline of the building and shows as well as the front parking lot. Speaking of parking lots, the parking standards are found in City Code 10-7-26. Chillwater Cannabis Shop would be occupying 4,530 square feet. We calculate the minimum parking stalls based on the use of the space, and we would consider this a general commercial use. So this would be calculated by 5 stalls per 1,000 square feet, and then we would subtract about 25% for spaces such as restrooms and hallways, and then we would add a requirement of 1 stall per each fleet vehicle on site. The applicant did mention that they would have at least 1 fleet vehicle on site. So with all that information taken into account, they would need a minimum of 18 parking stalls for this applicant. Based on the submitted plans, there are 37 parking stalls with 2 additional fleet vehicle parking stalls added for a total of 39 parking stalls on the site. Therefore, it is meeting the minimum parking lot requirements. The remaining tenant spaces would be about 28,954 square feet. Depending on the uses of the remainder of the building, that minimum parking requirement can change, but we are going to review that for each time we receive a conditional use permit that is submitted to us. Specifically for this district, for micro-cannabis businesses and cannabis retailers, they would all require a conditional use permit within this district. So we've heard interest that most of the users that will be coming in will be micro businesses. So that would require a conditional use permit for each of those applicants or tenants within that building. So we will evaluate parking for each tenant that comes into this facility through the same process and review. there's a likelihood that parking may become insufficient in the future, but at this time, that is not an issue, and we don't anticipate that being an issue for the first user or two. If parking does become an issue, there's different routes we can do to address that issue. For instance, they could install the required number of parking stalls, have proof of parking, or do a cross-sectional agreement with adjacent property owners. And then the applicant also did submit a dumpster plan, which was found in the staff report as well. They indicated the location of those dumpsters in the red X locations. And of those 3 dumpsters, the far eastern dumpster would not meet our screening requirements because it is visible from Frontage Road North. There are different options to address this to meet our city code requirement. One of which is to have it so that all private trash and recyclable material are screened on all 3 sides, or you can put it within the accessory structure or within the principal structure. And then lastly, it could be moved or relocated to behind the principal structure so it is out of public view. Based on the conversations we've had with the applicant, they were interested in the third option of having it located behind the principal structure so it's not visible from the frontage. And staff has indicated that to them as well and told them some locations that would satisfy the city code requirement, such as putting it to the rear of the building or further north on the property. Some planning considerations: the proposal is a use request since it is much regulated by the state. The project meets the findings for approval of CUP. The proposal meets the intent of the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan. It meets the Burnsville ordinance number 1619, which is city code 10-7-53. With that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council the approval of a CUP to allow a cannabis retailer at 3200 Highway 13 West, subject to the 10 conditions of approval. The project shall be completed in accordance with the submitted plans and is amended by the conditions of approval. Any significant changes to the plans as determined by the planning staff shall require review and approval by the Planning Commission and City Council. Conditional use permit approval shall expire 1 year from the date of the City Council approval unless a building permit has been requested or a time extension has been granted by the City Council. The City Council may extend the expiration date of such approval upon written application by the person to whom the approval was granted. The applicant shall complete pre-license inspections and other necessary steps with the State of Minnesota's Office of Cannabis Management to obtain fully issued cannabis business license. Prior to the issuance of a building permit and local zoning approval, the tenant space must assign a new address to reflect this suite addition. Notification of this change shall first be made to the city, then the U.S. Postal Service, and then County GIS Department. The conditional use permit approval is contingent upon submittal of proof of valid preliminary and final license from the Minnesota Office of Cannabis Management prior to operation. The business shall maintain all required state licenses throughout the life of the conditional use permit. All retail activities shall be fully contained within a principal structure. No outdoor activities or storage is permitted. Failure of the business to operate in compliance with Minnesota statutes and rules governing cannabis microbusinesses shall be grounds for termination of the conditional use permit. The business shall implement odor suppression measures including not limited to HVAC filtration or carbon scrubbers to prevent detectable odors beyond the property line. Security measures shall be installed and maintained consistent with OCM requirements and city code, including controlled access, exterior lighting, and surveillance cameras. With that, I will go back to the recommendation, and I will stand for any questions the Planning Commission may have.
Thank you, Ms. Chapman. All right, commissioners, do you have any questions for her? Commissioner Lowe?
Just to clarify a little bit, so from the parking standpoint, you'd mentioned the first 2-ish tenants would be fine. When you get to the third one, we'd have to have obviously a discussion if it's enough or not, or we have to have additional conversations about it. Who pays for that at that point? Is that, how does that fit within this? And who's responsible for that?
Yeah, so from my understanding, that would be the property owner's responsibility to facilitate that. And we would talk with them first to kind of discuss which route they would like to do, whether that's proof of parking or installing the stalls. And we would talk through that and work with them through that.
Okay. Initially, you guys assume it's there is a workaround to it, it's not gonna be a surprise. or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
that
we've
can't be
made that
accomplished.
upfront to them beforehand too. We specifically contacted the property owner and let them know that beforehand. At first, that was a concern, but after we provided those options, that put them more at ease.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hamilton?
So the space is going to be divided into multiple units, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Is that separate ownership?
So it would be owned by one business owner, one facility, but then each tenant space would lease that portion of that tenant space.
Okay. So are there separate entrances for each space?
Yeah, so they have demising walls, so they cannot go from one facility or one tenant space into the next. So I've seen the plans as well, that they are filling in the wall spaces that currently would connect them. So each tenant space is separate, they do not connect, and they have their own entrance and exit.
But we're not talking separate ownership for each space.
Correct.
One owner.
It's one owner, and then it's just leased for the individual tenants.
Okay, so just to clarify, so each individual tenant, does that need to go through the same protocols to make sure that their space is up to code and regulation?
Yeah, it's up to the tenants that are going in, it's their responsibility to meet OCM's requirements. So they're responsible for meeting state and local ordinance requirements.
Does that come before us again or not?
So all the tenants that are gonna be coming in will all require conditional use permits, so for each one that comes in, it will go through the same process where it's presented to you and we discuss it and we have the staff reports, so it will always be evaluated for this property.
Commissioner Anderson?
If I remember reading correctly, the northeast corner of the property is full of trash, you might call it. Are they going to be required to clean that up?
I believe so, that would be something that is a city code requirement for maintaining the property. I don't know the exact code section, but they still have to meet the city code requirements.
One other question. Is the HVAC for the entire building, or is it for each individual tenant?
So the HVAC specifically for this application is for that tenant space. So as more tenants come in, they will likely have their own HVAC systems.
Any more questions for staff? Commissioner Lund?
This isn't necessarily specific to this particular business, but it deals with the signage ordinance. We used to see it with the car dealerships where they put the huge inflatables outside. I see under the conditional use permit that outdoor activity is limited. And I mention this because I recently drove past one that had the large inflatable leaf out front. Does the CUP limit that, or does the signage ordinance limit that? Or can they put huge inflatables out front to get the attention of the drivers on 13?
I'm not sure about that specific question. I might turn that to staff.
That is a very good question, Commissioner. It's my understanding OMC will not allow that. So I'm guessing what you witnessed is a violation, because they cannot have attention getting per state statute. So our code does allow for inflatables and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure within the OMC's language for these uses, they cannot use attention getting devices such as an inflatable like that, or use that symbol. So that would be a violation. If it was in Burnsville, I'd be happy to, curious to know.
It's not in Burnsville.
Okay.
No. It's about 150 miles north.
Okay,
So-
well, yeah, I'm pretty sure there's something in state statute that says that, because there is some parts within the statute that talks about signage.
Okay.
And that's something we talked about our attorney with, because it's kind of a First Amendment question, so.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hamilton?
What security measures do they have to have in place?
I don't know the exact requirements, but it's something along the lines that they have like some sort of key card to access the facility. And I think like they have electronic locks, like a automatic locking system. I don't know them offhand, but they are specific things that OCM would require as opposed to city requirements.
To add on to that too, they're required to have surveillance on site 24/7, and to keep back rolls of all that information as well. So backlogs, I should say, excuse me.
Any more questions? All right. At this time and prior to the public hearing, I can invite the applicant up if they would like to speak prior to the hearing, or if they're in the room or on Zoom. You could come say hello. You can state your name and address just for the record.
Yeah, my name's Megan Solar. I'm store manager for that location. And I don't have anything else to add. You guys kind of covered it all.
Cool. Yep.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Long.
I have just a couple questions, just because we went through this a couple weeks ago. As far as IDing customers, at what point of contact do you ID the customers? Is it as they enter or not until they're making a purchase?
I believe the vestibule when you walk in is kind of like a public space where people can walk in, but it's gonna be closed off. They can't get past, and there will be that locked door that requires access to get into the shop itself. So they would come into our entryway. We would have someone there at all times manning that desk. That's when we would take the ID. We scan it through our system, and it would let us know. We would also inspect the ID, and then if they're okay to go through, then we would let them into the shop. No one can get access unless we give it to them.
Second question, do you do anything to secure your products after hours?
Yes, it goes into what we call the vault. So all of our products, even during the day, stay locked up. And then I believe that is monitored through OCM of who's going into the vault and all that. So those stay contained into a room.
Thank you.
No problem.
Commissioner Hamilton?
What types of products are you going to be selling
Right-
specifically?
Right now, specifically, it'd be the categories of vapes, flour, your pre-rolls, or the flour in a bag. Hopefully, we can get balms for people that are in pain and all that. That's all that we're looking at right now. I don't think, we'd have to look into concentrates if we're allowed to get them, but I don't think there's a lot that we can do with that.
I have a question. Is there any waste that would ever be produced? And what is the plan for any waste, product waste?
Yeah, I would say when something gets recalled or needs to be destroyed, from reading through everything, we would have to destroy that and make sure that it gets destroyed properly. I would have to go through the plans of what that is. I know in other places, they mix it with cat litter and then they dispose of it that way. We would definitely have a plan in place, so when that comes, I believe that's even required for the SOPs for OCM, and we would follow that correctly.
Any other questions before I open the public hearing? Commissioner Hamilton?
So to clarify, you haven't purchased the property at this point?
The owner owns the property, I believe. He is the owner of the property, and then we're taking over one space, and then he's gonna lease out those other spots. So we won't be part of the other businesses. We're just Chillwater, the dispensary, and then the other spots are
All
gonna
right,
get
so
leased.
you have one slice of it, and then the
Yes.
owner of the property is going to subdivide it.
Yes, he's gonna lease those out to other businesses. That'll be separate from us.
Got it.
To add on to the commissioner, just add on there, it's our understanding that all businesses within this building will be cannabis related. And we had a conversation with our attorney and OMC, each one will be required to have a conditional use permit. So we actively have one application right now, just came in for cultivation use. Requires, again, a conditional use
And
permit.
there'll be separate entrances
Correct.
for each?
Yep, and separate HVAC units and everything because of the odors and different requirements. So you guys will see potentially up to 4 applications on the site, including the one before us tonight.
And they won't be connected to us in any
Correct, they'll
way.
be
They'll be
separate.
completely separate from our business.
Commissioner?
More of a curiosity question. If you put 4 liquor stores in one building and they're competing against one another, what will be the advantage of having so many businesses related to cannabis in one building? I'm just concerned about the number of applications we're going to get and whether Burnsville is going to get, are we getting more than other cities? And are we going to have, it's like a cannabis mall almost, I don't understand.
I could answer if you like. So in our conversations, the applicant, each one will play a different role in the cannabis industry. There'll be a retail one, then there's gonna be a micro business, and then the micro business is more of your, where they can grow, sell, and, produce on site. You know, they can do all of it. And then we'll have one that's purely growing. That's the one we currently just got in. That's just purely growing. They're gonna sell to other places. They have the retail one, and I believe there's another micro business that was interested, and then potentially like an event center kind of a thing. So it's kind of each one plays a role.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to open the public hearing. All right. At this time, I am going to open the public hearing at 6:55 PM. Anyone wishing to speak to this agenda topic can approach the podium, or if we have someone online. Nobody? All right, I'll give it a minute. And I will close the public hearing at 6:56 PM. All right, Commissioners, I'm going to turn it over to you for any discussion or a motion.
Questions?
Commissioner Hamilton?
Has the city had direct conversations with the owner of the property itself? Okay.
Correct. Yep, we've had conversations. I believe that is they are doing this application on behalf. It's, what was the name? I'm blanking out. right now.
Rootkind Holdings LLC.
They would be the property owner, and then there'll be leasees along the way, such as the one in front of us tonight. So you'll probably see the property owner's name on multiple applications. And they have not purchased the property yet. They're in the process of doing so. I don't know if they've done it already, but last time I know, but they're close to closing.
Yeah, the last time I heard from them, they had a purchase agreement in place, but they had not purchased it yet.
Another question regarding the property itself. Besides the subdivision of the space, are there other modifications, like with windows and such, that are gonna have to take place?
At this time, they were not proposing to make any storefront improvements. They did talk about it. They had to go through a building permit process as required. There was talk about there's a giant tree out front, box, I don't know what, I think it's a box elder, it's huge, cottonwood, that they were talking about removing, and then they would just reutilize the sign out front. So otherwise, that's the only improvements they're proposing at this time. A lot of it depends on the tenant build-outs themselves, as each tenant has their own, they have to meet the OMC standards, so they'll all have to make different improvements as part of their applications.
Any other discussion, Commissioners? Commissioner Anderson?
I'll move that we recommend to the city council the approval of the CUP to allow cannabis retailer at 3200 Highway 13 West, subject to the 10 conditions of approval.
All right, we have a motion on the table. Any other discussion, or can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Lowe, all those in favor of the motion in front of us, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, the motion carries. And that will be on the agenda for the city council meeting on February 17th.
For the record, can we get a reason for the dissent vote?
I guess there's too many unknowns regarding the building itself and the unknowns regarding the subdivisions of it. And that, and Commissioner brought up of having that much in that space, all these separate cannabis businesses. I see it as some potential issues.
Thank you.
All right.
Can I add to that, because I was close to a dissent also. My concerns are going to be, when you look at the categories that a retailer must, or a business must meet for the CUPs, I think there's a couple in there relating to the community that I will question as this moves forward and they continue to grow out 4 businesses in one building. I have some concerns about that and whether it's going to continue to meet the standards of the CUP, so. That's where-
All right. Our next public hearing of the evening is the application of Clear Channel Outdoor, Inc. for a preliminary and final plat at the corner of Sibley Street and Highway 13 Frontage Road. Also being presented by Ms. Chapman. Take it away.
Thank you, Chair, for that introduction. So the subject property can be seen on the left-hand side, which is an aerial image of the property. Directly, there are 2 properties adjacent and touching the property. It is a corner lot and is directly at the corner of Sibley Street and Frontage Road South. The right-hand picture is a zoning image of the subject site and surrounding properties. The subject site and properties directly to the west and east are zoned B4 Highway Commercial District and are guided as BUS Business Retail Office in the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. And directly south is property zoned R3B, High Density Residential, and guided as HDR, High Density Residential. The existing property is meets and bounds and is currently unplatted. The existing site currently has a static billboard, and this specific preliminary and final plat is considered an abbreviated plat, which is further discussed and clarified in City Code Section 11-2-2. Abbreviated plats are basically when you have 6 lots that have adequate utilities on site. This allows it to bypass the planning commission and go to city council directly for public hearing. We talked about the specific application of whether this should be discussed at the city council or planning commission, and although it can bypass the planning commission, staff decided to have this, the public hearing held tonight. This would neither expedite the process or further delay it. This is just simply shifting the public hearing to tonight rather than the city council meeting. I would also like to mention that in 2023, the City Council work session, City Council directed staff to change the policy to allow all existing billboards to remain. Conditions requiring billboard removal would no longer be enforced. City staff informed property owners of this, and the policy change required staff to amend the sign code to allow existing billboards to remain. Clear Channel Outdoor Incorporated is requesting approval for a preliminary and final plat. Their intention for the property is to replace their static billboard so that they can create a new dynamic display billboard. But in order to do that, they first need to plat the property. Once the property is platted, the applicant would then submit a building permit to replace it with a dynamic display billboard. So in other words, a dynamic display billboard is a permitted use since it is adjacent to an arterial roadway and interstate freeway roadway. So in other words, a building permit would be needed and is reviewed administratively. It would not be reviewed by planning commission or city council. That is just something that they would submit and staff would review. So for general information on the plat is just creating a single lot. It would be Lot 1, Block 1, Clear Channel plat. It would be for a single lot, which is 47,117 square feet, and it will have a 10-foot drainage and utility easement on all sides. The submitted preliminary and final plat meets all the zoning ordinance requirements. And here's just a screenshot of that final plat, which can also be found in the staff report. It shows you the general boundary of that lot as well as the easement, or the 10-foot easement that's going to be on the property and adjacent to the 2 right-of-ways, which is State Highway 13 and then Sibley Street. The proposal meets the intent of the zoning ordinance and comprehensive plan. The platting of the property will allow the property to be built. Billboards are permitted in the I-1 and I-2 districts and properties adjacent to arterial and interstate freeway roadways. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council the approval of the preliminary and final plat of Clear Channel plat, subject to the 3 conditions of approval. The final plat shall be filed at Dakota County, and written receipt of the filing shall be provided to the city prior to the building permit issuance for any new construction on the proposed lot. The preliminary and final plat approval shall expire 1 year after city council approvals unless a final plat has been recorded with the Dakota County Recorder's Office or the city council approves an extension. Development fees shall be paid prior to the city releasing the signed plat, Mylar to the applicant for recording at Dakota County. With that, I will go back to the recommendation. I'm happy to move through the slides and answer any questions the planning commission may have.
Thank you very much. All right. Commissioner Lowe?
Can you give a little background of what was driving the 2023 policy change?
I'm not familiar with so much background, so I will turn that to staff for more information.
Yes, good question, Commissioner. So back in 2023, there was a lot of discussion at the council about a lot of the billboards were coming up to their, are expiring. And under code at the time, all billboards had to go at that time. Once it become their conditional use permits or their approvals ran out, they need to be removed. However, council changed direction at that time and decided there's about 7 of them that can remain. They're prominently located without the community, and they can be upgraded to digital display. And this is one of the 7 that can stay. We've notified all the applicants. We did a conditional use permit last year, amended PUD for the one at Burnsville Marketplace. And there's a couple other ones we're currently working with the applicants on this process. So it's just one of them. They're all owned by different companies,
Sure.
different entities.
I'm
So
sorry, so why is it here then? Remind me again?
why?
Yeah, why hold the public hearing for this then?
Oh,
if
generally,
they're
they can
allowed
go
to?
straight to council.
Right.
However, we thought it would be a better opportunity to bring it before the planning commission, as this board does see a lot of plats and stuff like that, to kind of just give an opportunity to hold the public hearing here instead of at the council meeting. So it's just something we're gonna probably look at doing as part of the zoning code update, actually subdivision code update.
Okay.
Instead of streamlining going right to council, which you can, but it really doesn't change much in the process. It's just still the same timeline.
Sure.
So that's the smoothest. Body sees a lot of plats. They're familiar with them. So we thought it'd be better to bring it here.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Anderson?
Maybe you can answer, Mike, maybe you can, Kyra, but when the billboard becomes a dynamic billboard, where does the approval for how it's aimed for lighting and stuff like that have to come up?
Yeah, so when they submit a building permit, we will review their plans. We have specific city code requirements on lighting standards and how often that the message can change. And I know I spoke with the applicant as well, but in general, about the orientation of the billboard itself. Currently, it's considered legal non-conforming in terms of the setbacks, and that if they wanted to still, have those same setbacks as currently today, they could still do that, but it would have to have the same exact footprint and size of this current sign. So if they were to, let's say, change the overall footprint of that sign or that billboard, it would have to meet current requirements or current setbacks for that district.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, at this time, I can invite the applicant up to the podium to say hello and answer questions. Hello.
Certainly. Good
You can-
evening, Chair of Planning Commission. My name is Matthew Wyland with Clear Channel Outdoor.
Can you say
We're
your
the-
address as well?
The applicant, we office out of Minneapolis at 3225 Spring Street Northeast. And we currently operate 2 other locations in Burnsville on Highway 35, where we have dynamic signs. I think we did those probably 2008. It's been a long time. Certainly want to start by thanking your city staff. Kara's been really helpful through the process, did a very thorough job, and certainly agree with her recommendations. But we look forward to investing in upgrading this location in your city as well. Hopefully you notice our signs, that's why they're there. But part of the partnership we have with the cities, we do provide city messaging on those signs as well. And your city does a great job utilizing that with the kind of messaging they have. But with that, this is just the first part of the process. We got to get the plating done, but we are actively investigating and hoping to upgrade these signs at sometime in the future. One of the things I'm doing as part of my investigation is there's a meeting tomorrow night on Highway 13. I wasn't aware there's some pretty extensive stuff going on there, so we need to, understand more thoroughly before we make a big investment in this location. But that stuff we'll continue to work with you guys on, but certainly appreciate working in your city.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Anderson?
Are there any plans to develop the lot itself beyond the billboard?
Excellent question, Commissioner. We do get periodically, we've gotten a request for that. Our priorities, we're a billboard company, so we're focused on this first, but potentially in the future, we'd look at, not ourselves, but we may subdivide, we'd have to come back before you again and subdivide it further. But as long as it didn't interfere with our operation of the board, yeah, we've had a number of different people come to us and ask for opportunities to look at it. So possibly in the future, but as a billboard company, our first goal is to operate our sign. But if it fits on the property and works with that, we have many, obviously, locations where we work with landlords. We're a pretty easy tenant. We can, be in a parking lot. So we'll see what the future looks like, Commissioner.
All right, if no more questions, then I will go ahead and open the public hearing.
Thank you.
I am opening the hearing at 7:11 PM. Anyone who wishes to speak can approach the podium, or anyone on Zoom. No one on Zoom? Seeing nobody in the chamber? All right. I will close the public hearing at 7:11 PM as well. Turning it over to you, commissioners, do you want to discuss anything, or does anyone have a motion?
I have a question.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Will future Highway 13 construction affect this at all?
That is an excellent question. I did not think about that until the applicant brought that up. So I don't know if it necessarily impacts their site, but there will be changes to that area, is my understanding. That is a good catch from
Yes,
there.
all right. So is there in the regs a distance that a billboard must be from a highway?
There is some setback standards, however, since it's currently a legal non-conforming use, they could update the sign as it is where it's currently located. That's what they're proposing. They're not proposing, they're going to pretty much take the sign down that's there and replace it with
Okay.
the digital. So there's nothing like that. There is some stuff in code about setbacks from adjacent communities. However, again, it's a legal non-conforming sign. So I think that code section is kind of outdated, to be honest. But there isn't right now, no.
Thank you.
But it's interesting, that's a good thing I would pay attention to. I think that's something we didn't think about, but at this time, we're just looking at the planning process, not the actual signage application itself.
Any other questions? Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Make a motion that we recommend to the city council the approval of the preliminary and final plat of Clear Channel Plat, subject to the 3 conditions of approval.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. That will also be on the city council agenda for the February 17th meeting. Next topic tonight is the zoning code reorganization and update, session 2, being presented by Mr. Murosla, our planning manager.
All right, session 2 is my clever name. Unlike the title for this district that I changed after I sent out the packet, or it just changed now. So, make sure this is the right presentation here. I'm just making sure. All right, this is the right one. All right, again, the goals of this amendment or update to the code is to focus on improving organization and consolidation, enhance usability, modernize and plain language updates, and updates to bring code into compliance with current laws. So one thing I didn't talk about last time is how the code is set up numbering wise. So here's kind of an example. So all the zoning is in Title 10. Today we're going to be talking specifically about Chapter 8, which is always the second number. Article is the third number. So tonight we're going to be talking about Articles 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then there's the section numbers, and then there's the subsection. This is important because there's one modification as part of one of these updates that is a subsection, all that. Now, with these ones before you tonight, there was a lot of red lines to the parks chapter, and then one to the floodplain, was required as part of a previous project. But we really did not do a lot of amendments to, these chapters for numerous reasons. One is the environmental overlay districts, a very complex, zoning code. And that's something we'll take a closer look at when we do a major overhaul, big lift, after the comprehensive plan is done. That is a section of the code that will probably be impacted by the comprehensive plan, and the DNR needs to be involved. There's a bunch of criteria in there. So that's, all we did to that section is redid the numbering, and I'll get to, that's the next slide. Same with floodplain, very regulated section of code, chapter of code, should say, by the DNR. We didn't touch much, except for the required, stuff we had to do as part of this other project, which I'll talk about here in a second. Parks District, there is a lot that changed there, just to make it simpler. There's a lot of uses listed, so we simplified those. Kira did an excellent job, finding 2 terms that kind of summarize all the uses listed. And then there's the conservatory, I struggle with this word every time, Conservancy District. I don't think I'm saying it right, but it's one of my vocabulary words. We didn't do much there either. We're just renumbering. So again, these ones here, most of the updates involved renumbering, recodification within the chapters. Again, 10.8.1 environmental overlay. I'm just gonna call it the CD district, so I don't, you guys don't have to watch us struggle up here. Again, that one was just, we just renumbered them. We didn't do any text updates. Now, the first one here where we did have to do a text update was to a subsection. A project that was approved in 2002 called the Twin Lake Townhome Development, or 2022, excuse me, required a LOMAR, which is a letter of map amendment. So the area was prone to flooding previously until this development came in. And so when that happens, if you amend any kind of flood maps or anything like that, you have to get FEMA approval, and they update the flood maps. So this project did require it. It took 3 years to get approved. We got notification on September 2nd, 2025 that the LOMAR was approved. Once that gets approved, we are required to update the zoning code, official zoning map, and as part of that. And then FEMA will update their map, which will be on the next slide here. Again, a LOMAR is a letter of map amendment. It's an official FEMA determination that updates floodplain maps as it is needed to reflect changes in flood risk, flood insurance mainly, new data development, and mitigation projects. So on the screen here is the project area here. The project is right here that triggered the LOMAR. It's these townhouses here to the north of South Cross Drive. And then on Grand Avenue behind these apartments here, you can see the new, it's really, now that I wrote on it, let me get that off of here. The area was prone to flooding, and now with the development here that pushed it back, and the new flood maps here, and the most important part here for our city code update is this language right here that states that the LOMAR was approved on this date. So within the code, within your packets, that was the only section that was updated as part of that floodplain, was literally to say that this project number and that date were in there. So it's now included within the official zoning regulation ordinance, floodplain regulation ordinance. So that's the only thing there required by law. And then proposed amendments to 10.8.3, which is the Parks District. As I previously talked about, we did clean that up a lot. Currently, there is a ton of uses in there that range from that there's boat landings, there's play equipment, picnic shelters, picnic area, you name it. So Kira did some research on this and then found 2 uses that collect all the uses into 2 definitions very well. And I'm going to read them. So the first one is an active outdoor recreation facilities, and the new definition was included in your packet. Will read, active outdoor recreational facilities means areas and facilities designed for organized or informal outdoor physical activities, including but not limited to athletic fields, sports courts, playgrounds, skate parks, trails, summer improvements intended for active recreation. So that captures a lot of the uses that are currently listed in the ordinance. And then the second one is passive recreation and open space, which means uses of land primarily intended for preservation of open space and natural resources for low-intensity recreational activities that do not require substantial structures or facilities. Such uses may include walking, nature trails, picnic gardens, natural areas, wildlife observations areas, and similar activities, and shall not include organized athletic events, commercial recreation, or activities that are material, that may alter the natural character of the site. These two definitions will be included in the definitions chapters once we get there. I have a whole list of them that we'll be cleaning up. We'll bring that to you at a future meeting. But those two uses or definitions collect a lot of the uses that were currently listed in there. And then again, too, we have another one, there's other recreational uses or facilities that are consistent with the intent of the park district. Another catch-all, instead of having to list all these different uses. Otherwise, the chapter itself remains the same, no substantive changes. We just really want to try to reduce the number of definitions. What you'll see happen when we take a look at the business or commercial districts and the industrial. A lot of uses, a lot of listing, trying to simplify those into simpler definitions and less. So that's it for tonight. Very simple, very quick. So on February 9th, we'll have the business, industrial, and specialized zoning provisions. And then we'll have a final review on the 23rd. We'll have administrative and general standards at that time. Again, we're not trying to do substantive changes. We're just trying to reorganize to simplify the use of the code. So it's easier for staff, the commissioners, the public, and customers to use. With that, I stand for any questions.
I just wanted to say thank you. When the packet came out and I saw 74 pages, I panicked. But thank you for making it so clear and easy for us to understand.
Yeah, after the last presentation, I realized I needed to do something different. And also, I should point out, we did change the name. I did change the name. Right now, it is currently named Special Overlay Districts. I don't think that captures it well, so we're proposing now to kind of change it to environmental overlays and special districts. Environmental and floodplain are kind of they are overlay districts, and then parks and my favorite one, we'll call it CD district, are districts. So I thought that name captures it a lot better than what was proposed in your packets. So, but my goal here is to make it very simple, because if you look at those red line documents, there's something else, and once I get done doing that, kind of need a, as the staff will say, Mike's been looking at code today. So, yeah. Thank you very much.
So the Twin Lakes finally got in our code after it was built?
Yeah, took a little while.
No questions, it looks good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did like the terms. I noticed those as well. Good find.
Thank you.
All right. The last, or excuse me, second to last is updates on our agenda. Any updates from commissioners? Updates from staff?
Yes, at the last council meeting, which I believe was on the, I guess I'll get my notes back up here, last week on the 20th, Costco project for the fuel station relocation was approved. So that they will be moving forward with their project. Staff's currently working on the development agreement. They won't be doing anything until that development agreement is approved by council at a future meeting. But they're hoping to break ground later this spring. So we're working that development agreement. The development agreement goes right to council, but will include the public improvements in there, which is the stoplight at 140th and Burnhaven. With that, that's the only project that was approved at the last meeting. That's it.
All right, if nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, and that's a wrap.